Now joining me, former Whitewater independent counsel Robert Ray to sort out what could be next. Robert, very good to see you.
Nice to be with you.
What do you think?
I guess the only silver lining in for the Trump White House is that within 5 months after Bob Mueller's appointment, he's now taken action and brought charges. So, you know, lesson learned.
Moving quickly.
It's moving quickly.
What does that make you think about the timetable here?
I think what it suggests, also you've got a guilty plea here. They're obviously applying pressure to attempt to obtain information to resolve the reason why he was appointed in the first place, which is to determine whether or not there's provable collusion that constitutes a federal crime. We don't know the answer to that yet. There's no way to tell from the charges that were returned.
So at 1:30 when
week.
Manafort appears, what's that process all about?
It's just an initial appearance before a federal judge, an arraignment on the indictment and a plea of not guilty. That's the commencement of the formal part of criminal proceedings.
All right, now when
which will go on for months. I mean, there's no, this isn't going to happen and be resolved within a matter of a week or two. The two cases that were brought will last for some time. The guilty plea will not last, obviously, for very long. But again, we don't know where this is going.
Not on the part of Manafort. But,
correct. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you, and you've been through this? I mean, is part of the idea? Here's what you're facing. What can you say about other people to try to draw it in?
But that's not the only reason. In other words, if this were just a case that were handled by any other of the 90-something U.S. attorneys across the country, this case independently would appear to have merit. You've got, concealed bank accounts, the failure to register as a foreign agent. There are real issues about money laundering here. There's the attempted forfeiture of assets, including the homes that were purchased with supposedly.
Robert, when the president tweets out, as he did, this is all before he hooked up with me. I'm paraphrasing here.
Sure, he has a point. I mean, if you look at the first paragraph of the indictment, you're talking about the activity principally between 2006 and 2015.
Right.
So, we're talking about if crimes were committed, and obviously the defendants are presumed to be innocent, and that's what they'll be arraigned on this afternoon and plead not guilty. But you're talking about activity principally that related to things that occurred, obviously, before he became campaign chairman and having anything to do with the Trump campaign.
But, of course, what they're looking for is who else he could serve up. Right?
Of course. And those are the things that are not alleged in the indictment. And obviously there are things in the investigation that Special Counsel Bob Mueller is continuing to look at. So, in some sense, this is just the first phase. But, my concern all along had been, were lessons learned from independent counsel / special counsel investigations of the past. It is, I think, important to know today that, again, within 5 months, not a year or not 18 months or more, Bob Mueller has taken action. You can't get to the end of the investigation until you get to the beginning. And so this is the beginning of formal proceedings. I'm sure other things are being looked at. I'm sure also that this is not the full extent of charges against Paul Manafort. I mean, one of the things that's notable, there are no specific tax charges like tax evasion and other things. That may be because Bob Mueller does not have tax authority within his jurisdiction. I'm not sure about that, but you'd expect
he had enough else to get.
He had enough else.
Other accounts, right?
Well,
yeah,
no question, and it's serious, and these are felony charges. So I think the message today is let's not overstate what this means because it's just the first stage, but let's not minimize the fact that this is a significant development. Significant charges have been brought.
All right. So if you're the President of the United States and you're feeling that all of your former campaign manager, they're talking to you and maybe trying to strike a deal.
Sure.
Should you worry?
Well, you could be worried, but it may also be, the signs so far from Paul Manafort have been either directly or indirectly that he doesn't have anything to offer. As he said, I'm not going to lie. So, if that remains to be true now that he's actually in the dock and facing federal felony charges, then obviously, the Trump White House has nothing to worry about. If he does have something, it's clear that this is a way to go about trying to find it. And my guess is that Bob Mueller will find it if it's there to be found.
Do you think in the timetable of looking at what we've got here that this is concluded within 6 months or your own investigation? These things tend to go far afield.
They do,
right?
But if you're ever going to have the chance at getting an investigation to a reasonable conclusion before the midterm elections, this is a good sign. That's the silver lining in this for the Trump White House. In other words, you can't get to that stage unless you get significant investigative activity leading to charges to explore when those charges are brought, whether you can apply the pressure necessary to find out what the truth is. And that's part of, that's not the only part of the effort, but that's part of the effort. And there's no way to get to the finish line unless you act, expeditiously. So it's a good thing for everybody, in the public interest, for the Trump White House, for the country, that charges now, we've now entered the stage of formal proceedings before a court.
Every president has the power to disrupt the process and just fire the person who is investigating and getting close on his heels, or just ticking him off.
Or pardon people.
Or pardon people. You're right about that. In the case of Mueller and this president, has that train, as I said to our prior guest, left the station? Is it too late to even consider that? You can always consider it.
I think so, because I think there's public sentiment behind, for the foreseeable future, allowing, on a bipartisan basis, Bob Mueller to complete and conclude this investigation. So, I think that's where the country is right now. That doesn't mean that that won't change.
But what if they find evidence that he's not looking into any of the Hillary Clinton stuff, not looking into this Uranium One project and all that, and the Republicans say, well, that's not fair?
Well, that's part of, fairness is part of public sentiment, right?
Right.
And the White House appropriately should be pushing back, as they are. That's all part.
Do you know, or do you think that Mueller is looking into that?
Don't know. We're not going to know until, when and if charges are brought, or whether we see significant investigative activity. But it's fair in the political process to ask that question about fairness of the investigation.
Do you think he can be a fair arbiter here?
I do. I think that's what everybody's consensus seems to be about him. And I agree with you. I think the train has left the station about criticisms of him during the time that he served as FBI director. The FBI's mission continues, as does the Justice Department. And the good news out of this is, remember, this is an appointment of a special counsel by the Deputy Attorney General as the result of a conflict. And as the result of that conflict, now you have charges pending in federal court as of arraignment this afternoon against the former campaign manager, the now President of the United States.
Big deal. All right, Robert Ray, the former Whitewater independent counsel, respected, and he was criticized by both sides. That's what you call fair and balanced in the legal world.